Hi and welcome back to Project Phoenix 83, the show where we turn this junker into a race car. And on this episode, I drop a thing and get my finger caught in a fan. So after driving the car for the first time, I realised I needed some new tyres. The ones that were on there were dry rotted and some of them had punctures in and they were just going flat all the time. So I definitely needed some new tyres. So the first thing to do would be to just replace the tyres I had. So I went on to TireRack.com, typed in my car, and it came up with some tyres for the 14-inch wheels. Unfortunately, they weren't performance tyres, they were just really standard tyres. And there was kind of no point in just getting some standard tyres and having to pay to get them mounted and balanced and all that. So I wanted some slightly more performance tyres. So I looked at the optional 15-inch wheels that would have come on, say, a Trans Am version of my car. I could always pick up some wheels, 15-inch wheels are pretty easy to come by. The only problem I had there was the only performance tyres were BF Goodrich TA radials. I have no idea if they're any good or not. I assume they are because a lot of people run them and they look great on the car, but they're not really what I'm used to. So I looked at the price and they were $170 each, which seems an awful lot for tyres that I have no idea if they're any good or not. So I decided to look for something else. So I didn't really know how big of a tyre I could go, so I went on some forums and things. But there are some ways to find out how big of a wheel and tyre you can get. So I'll talk about that now in this educational section. In this section, I wanted to talk about how to choose wheels and tyres. Now, the easiest way, of course, is to stick with the wheels and tyres that you have when you got the car, but as in our previous episode we talked about wanting to put bigger tyres on to get a bigger contact patch. The next easiest thing to do is to go to a website like TireRack, put in your car and it'll tell you what sizes and what alternate sizes you can get. That's probably, again, the easiest. But if you're going for something extreme, like I am, the other way to do it, again, easier way, is to go on forums and find out what other people have done. Things like 3rd gen Firebirds and Camaros, loads of people race them. So there's a lot of information out there about what tyres the people have ran and what size they fit and what problems they came into. So you can really easily just go online and find out. Now, if your car is a little bit more, not as well documented, I guess, there are other ways you can do it. And this is actually what I did because I wanted to back up to make sure that what people were saying on the forums would work for me. So I'm going to talk about tyre and wheel fitment, backspacing or offset, sidewall tyre sizes, and bolt patterns. Now, these are all things that you have to take into consideration when going for a wheel and tyre package. So just getting a tyre for a wheel, like I say, just go to TireRack and just buy whatever you want, whatever you can afford. But if you're changing your wheels and tyres to go for a larger size or a wider tyre, then you have to know at least what these things are for when you're out there purchasing. So the first thing, which hopefully most people will know, is about sidewall size. Now, in the US and UK, tyre sizes are denoted with this sort of signature on the sidewall. So this one says 295 65 R15. And what does that mean? Well, weirdly, in the US, 295 refers to the width of the tyre in millimeters. 65, this is the one that gets everyone, refers to the thickness of the tyre, the profile of the tyre. But it doesn't mean 65 millimeters, it means 65% of the width. So the profile of this tyre is 65% of 295. Go figure. And then R15 means that the wheel is a 15-inch wheel, so it fits on a 15-inch wheel. So that last number is the easiest because it's the size of your wheel. So like my Charger has R20s because it has 20-inch wheels. The Jeep has 15-inch wheels. My Firebird actually came with 14-inch wheels. So again, I'm going for a bigger wheel. Only ever so slightly 1 inch taller, but there we go. So, as I mentioned here, 295 refers to the width of the wheel. Now there are different measurements. Sometimes it's called the overall width, sometimes it's called the section width. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail. There's a lot of other people that have done more in-depth discussions on what this means, but when you load a tyre up, as in put the weight of the car on it, it normally kind of bulges out ever so slightly. And this is extreme, scenario here. And when you inflate them as well. So the section width, I think, refers to the actual contact patch. I could be wrong. It could mean something completely different, but these are when you're getting into real details on wheels and tyres. And like I say, I'm not going to do that because other people have done it better than I have. But so going back to this, 295 refers to this. 65 refers to, so like 65% of this width. So you can calculate what that is, and that equals this here. So if we just grab a calculator really quickly, and we say 295 times by 0.65 equals 191. So that means that the profile is 191 millimeters. So that's 20 centimeters. Sounds an awful lot. Interesting. Is it half that? Is 191 combined? So that's 10 centimeters. Oops. This is my little ruler here. That means the section width is this wide. That's huge. Now, I can't remember where I got this number from. It could have been for a freaking off-road car for all I know. So who knows? That could be legit. It could be 20 centimeter tire height. Sounds odd, but whatever. Anyway, so you need to know this. You need to be able to understand it. Now, trucks in the US, they have a different specification. I can't remember what the naming of the specification is. It's something like balloon size. No, I can't remember. Anyway, but you might just get something really simple. So like for my Jeep, I just bought 30x 9.5. This is so much easier, and I wish all tires were basically like this. That means that the height of the tire is 30 inches and the width of the tire is 9.5. Wow, that helps. And then it'll be like, again, R15, which means it fits on a 15-inch rim. That makes it a lot more easier to figure out. So in the last episode, I talked about getting a 28-inch tire. So how do you convert 28 inches to this type of nomenclature? Well, there are some websites out there. There's one called Tire Size. I think it's just tiresize.com, and I use it all the time. And you can convert this, and it'll tell you what the equivalent light truck tire size is, such as 30 inches. Now, when you get to drag slicks, there's a crossover between what they call a small tire and a big tire. Now, a small tire, normally you can convert between this type of style and the 30 inches, 20 inches or whatever. But once you go bigger than that, you're pretty much just using inches. So I'm getting a relatively small tire for a drag car, so I can pick and choose which style I want to look at. So I'm looking for a 28 inch, so I'm looking for a size like this. So that is how you read them. I'll come back to this in a little bit. Now, like I said before, you can go on to forums and find out how big of a tire to fit. So some people will say, oh yeah, I managed to fit a 295 or a 330 or something onto their car. Now, that's all great and everything, but you need to know a lot more about it. You need to know about the wheel. But first of all, let's just look at what they're talking about as far as how wide a tire you can get inside a car. So over here, this little diagram shows an axle going across and then the face of the axle. This is the suspension, and this is the outside bodywork. So it's as if we cut away at the car and we're looking at it from behind. So your wheel and tire need to be able to fit into this area here. So, and you've got to remember that as the car goes up and down a racetrack or on a road, the suspension moves up and down. So you can't just like stuff a massive tire in here and expect it to work, because it'll go up and it'll hit into the bodywork. So that's an issue. But essentially, what people are doing is they're saying that, okay, my car came with tyres that were this big, and through trial and error or through calculating it like this, they've worked out that the maximum they can get away with is something like this, which means that as the suspension moves up, remember it moves in an arc, mostly, kind of, it's not hitting the bodywork and it's also not hitting the suspension, and that's basically, they've worked out that's the maximum tyre size, width and height that you can fit inside a car. So that was kind of one of the guidelines I went for. So say if they said it was a 300mm, I would say, okay, well, let's just play it safe and go for a 295. So then I worked backwards to work out, you know, the height and everything. But basically, this is the kind of thing you need to think about. Now that's just saying that's the maximum tyre size you can fit in there. So let's just think about this as well. So let's put a wheel on this axle here. So we've got our really badly drawn 15-inch, so that's a 15-inch wheel, okay? And the tyre mounts on it like that, okay? So if we go for a wider tyre, a wider wheel, sorry, and let's say that the wheel just sticks straight out here. Oh, well, the other thing, of course, is you can't put a massive wheel on a skinny wheel, a wide tyre on a skinny wheel, it'll just fall off. You need to be within manufacturer specifications. But let's just say we did that and we extended this out here, you know, got a new tyre. Well, say it starts rubbing up here. That's obviously a problem. So the other thing you can do is you can change your wheel. So instead of getting a wheel that goes out wide that way, get a wheel that comes out this way a bit. And I'll talk about how you do that in a second. But now when we get a big tyre, we're miles away from the edge. So how do you move a wheel in and out? Well, you can't move a wheel in and out, but you can buy different wheels that are further in and out. And the way you do that is through backspacing or offset. Now, typically a wheel has a mounting surface and then the actual wheel itself. Now that mounting surface is the point of measurement when we're talking about backspacing and offset. This point here is the point that mounts to your axle. And how far back it sticks is backspacing. So in this example, it looks like the wheel comes back maybe an inch or two, so that might have a 2-inch backspacing. So in this example here, we had a wheel that had like 0 backspacing. All the wheel was outboard of the axle. So we wanted to move it in, so we added backspacing. Now you can just have, say, a 7-inch wide wheel and then have, you know, move it in and out. But you can also, if you want to get a wider tyre, you can also add it wider and then move it in and out, and that's what I did. I can't remember how wide the original wheel was, say 6 inches, and then I went to a 10-inch wheel. So 10 inches wide. So a 10-inch wide wheel, I wanted to keep it in the middle. I wanted to basically keep it so that the tyre was equidistant on both sides. So what did I do? I got I think it was a 5-inch backspacing, which means that from the center line, there's 5 inches of the wheel this way and there's 5 inches of the wheel that way, which means that it sits in the middle. Now, one thing you'll see some people do, and you might not have realized why they do it, and a lot of times it's fake, and a lot of times it's just for looks. But say we needed, for whatever reason, to have a massive, massive wide tyre, and our suspension was so tight here that we couldn't go back this way, so we couldn't add backspacing. But we wanted to have a 15-inch wheel, 15-inch wide wheel. Well, we can't go back this way, so our backspacing is kind of set. So you can go this way. Well, that's going to hit that bodywork. Well, that's not going to work, is it? So what people do is they get wide arch kit. So it normally like bolts on and adds an extra piece here. And then what they do And this is what real racers do and posers don't do, is they then cut underneath. They cut away the original bodywork. And that's how you can fit a nice big wide tyre underneath the car. I might look at doing that in the future, but based on my calculations and my fitments, I didn't need to do that right now. And like I said, I'm only looking for about 300 horsepower. I don't need massive, great big 15-inch wide wheels. So to be honest, the wheels that I'm going for are massively overkill for what I'm trying to do. So the backspacing. Offset is basically the same, but it's calculated kind of differently. So like I said, backspacing is how much from the center of the wheel the mounting surface goes back. Offset is, again, offset's normally measured in millimeters, and backspacing is measured in inches. So this is kind of a difference between an American or a European and American measurement. So backspacing is American, which, would you believe it, is a lot simpler than offset for calculating. But the offset is you take the overall width of the wheel and you have a center line, an imaginary center line that goes up, and the offset is how far away the mounting surface is, positive or negative, from that imaginary center line. So it's not like it's complicated to work out, but the thing that I always forget is that negative offset or is that positive offset? I can never remember. So backspacing is easy because it is literally always from the back, so it makes it easier to kind of understand. So that's backspacing and offset and why you would need to do that. This is sidewall size, so how you calculate. So once I've said, all right, I can fit a, whatever size, you can then go and find out. Now, one thing to bear in mind, if you do all of this calculations, you're working out it exactly, which is great, except for the fact that you might not find a tire that size. So if you work it out that I need a 28-inch height and I want it to be 10 inches wide on a 15-inch wheel, well, that might not exist, or it might exist but only for trucks, so off-road tires. You might not be able to find slicks that size. So again, going to tiresize.com. I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but they are a fantastic resource for this kind of stuff. They've got it all graphically set out, and you can also compare tire sizes, so you can compare what you had to what you're going to get, that kind of thing. But if you basically type in this thing, it comes up with a list of alternatives. So it might say 295 60 R15 is actually a close approximation of what you want. And then it'll also show you a list of tires that size that are available. So when I first put this in, it came up as like one tire that was available as like a truck. So I changed it a little bit and I was like, okay, well, let's have a look at what this would be. And it came up with like 3 tires, but they were super expensive. I'm like, okay, well, how about I go for, 295 by 50. So I'm narrowing it a little bit by 15. And then it's like, oh yeah, you've got 20 tires to choose from, ranging from $100 all the way up to $300. And you're like, sweet. So that's something to bear in mind is, yes, you can use this calculations and all of this kind of information to work out how big of a tire you need, but then you've got to figure out if you can afford it or if it's even available. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So we know that I can get a 15-inch tire that's as wide as I want and as tall as I want, so we're good there. But now I need a wheel to fit it on. So I've worked out that I want a 15-inch wheel with a, say, 5.5-inch backspacing. Okay, so the other thing to think about is bolt pattern. Now, when you're buying wheels, again, if you were looking at, say, somebody else's car and you think, wow, that's the same as car as you, and you go, oh, that car looks great, that's exactly what I want my car to look like, it's got the right size tires, it's got the right nice wheels. Well, the easiest thing is to just ask that person what wheels and tires they've got and just buy those. That way you know it fits on your car, provided they haven't modified it or you've modified it in the same way they have. But when it comes to buying sort of like, not custom wheels, but specific wheels, you might not be finding anybody else that has it. Now, I was obsessed with buying NASCAR style wheels for my car Don't ask me why. I saw an episode of Hot Rod Garage and I was addicted to the Bassett racing wheels. So I knew I was getting 15-inch wheels and of that style. Luckily for me, they make them in almost every bolt pattern and every backspacing and almost every size you can imagine. So I was super lucky there. But just to bear in mind, bolt pattern is important. Now, the first thing obviously is how many bolts you have. So this is talking about so you got your brake disc or drum or whatever, and you've got bolts sticking out that you have to attach your wheels to. The first thing to look at is how many of those bolts there are. Typically every car I've owned has got 5. I think Fox Body Mustangs have 4. Some Japanese cars, I think Hondas maybe, or early Toyotas have 4. Whatever, just it's easy, you count them, it's very obvious. Now the other thing you can do is, again, go on forums and that kind of thing, and you'll be able to find out, or like go to TireRack.com and say that you want to buy wheels, type in your car, and as long as you haven't changed your car in any way, sort of changed out the rear end or anything, then they will be able to show you which wheels you need. But I wasn't doing that. I was going to a wheel supplier. I think I used Speedway. And I can't remember if they had any of that kind of stuff on their website or not, but I wanted to work mine out. So I went online, I had a look, and what they say for a 3rd gen Firebird Camaro is it's called a 5 on 5 3/4. So they're obviously talking about inches. So it's 5. So 5 refers to the number of studs that stick out that you need to attach your wheel to. 5 on 5 3/4. What does that mean? Well, bolt pattern is measured as... Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I could be completely wrong, but this is my understanding, is it's the measurement from the outside of one bolt to the middle of another. That distance there, on my case, being 5 and 0.75 of inches. Now, you could have something like a 4 bolt wheel, and I think it's something like, I say, like a 4 on 100, which means that the distance from there to there is 100. Not inches, millimeters. Because we like to change things up when we're talking about cars. But I know that almost every Chevy light duty vehicle that's been produced since 1970 something and whatever uses 5 on 5 3/4. That's just a standard for Chevys. Ford, I think, changed it. Like I said, I think the Mustangs used to be like 4 on whatever, and they're 5. And that's actually a common thing now, is for people to swap out the bolt pattern on the rear of their car. You can get bolt pattern adapters. So what they do is, say you've got this 5 stud thing here, but you've got some wheels that you really want to get. Say you want to get some Japanese wheels, some like T37 Volt Racing wheels. You have to have them, but they come in as a 5 and so like a 5 on 5.5 or whatever the size is. It's like 101 point. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've had a Japanese car, but. It'll be different to 5 on 3/4. So what you can get is you get a plate, and the plate sits on top, and it has holes, big holes in it on one side, and then it has studs that stick out in between it, and those are now, the distance between those ones are what you need. So say it was 5 inches. And that's an adapter. The only problem is, obviously, it takes up physical space to do that, so it pushes your wheels out. So it pushes your wheels out further, which means you have to buy wheels with a larger backspacing, and that could be a problem. So say if you were going for T37s, I mean, they come in all shapes and sizes, but it might be that you couldn't get the offset or backspacing that you needed for those, so you're screwed. So that's just something to bear in mind, is just when you're looking for wheels, make sure you get the right bolt pattern, because it will just never fit. Some people will go, oh, well, I can fit, whatever's on there. So yeah, I'm sure you could, but they might not be perfectly centered in the hole. So if you've got, say, these 2 bolts, and you've got your thread sticking through, this one might be a little bit tighter, and that's going to when you're driving around, that's going to force this, and this bolt could snap. So you want to be careful that you don't get the wrong bolt pattern. But that's how to read a tyre size, what tyre and wheel fitment means, backspacing and offset, and bolt pattern. I hope that helps. But I went through all of this and I found out what wheels I needed, and I ordered them and I bought them and they arrived and they fit. So those rear tyres that I purchased are Nitto NT555R drag DOT approved radials. So what does that mean? Well, the DOT means that they are approved by the Department of Transport, although the Department of Transport doesn't actually approve anything. It's just they set out some guidelines and manufacturers build to their specifications. They don't actually put stamps on things, so that's a kind of a strange thing that people say when they say, oh, these headlights are DOT approved. It's like, no, they don't do that. But anyway, so these are DOT approved, which means that technically I can drive them on the road, but there was a note when I bought them that said, please don't drive these on the road, they're not roadworthy. So that's a bit of a strange thing. Why would you have road legal tyres that you can't drive on the road? Well, the reason for that is in certain types of drag racing, you need to have a certain class, and that class is dictated by being road legal. So while they are road legal and I could drive them on the road, they're not designed really for, you know, driving in rain or snow or anything like that. So that's what that means. They're nice sticky tyres, nice big fat, I can air them down, and they are designed for drag racing, so I'm pretty happy with those rear tyres. So I wanted to get something for the front that would match. Obviously not as big, needs to be able to turn in the wheel arch. Now that's one of the challenges with front tyres is you can't just fill up the size of the arches, you need to have them be able to turn as well. So a bit narrower. I went online to the forums again to find out what other people were running on the front, and found the sort of like the happy spot for the thickness of the front tyres, the width of the front tyres. So I was looking for 15-inch wheels to match the rears. I know the width, so then I was just looking for the height. Unfortunately, I couldn't really find any that would look right under the car as far as nice big sidewalls that were also performance tyres. So I ended up going for Toyo Proxy R888Rs. I've used these in the past, and they are fantastic tyres. They're super, I love these tyres. They really improved my MR2 no end. So I ended up going for those. Now the only thing is they're quite low profile, which sounds okay, sounds normal, but when they're on my Firebird, they look ridiculous. They're a lot smaller than the old tyres that came on the car. So the wheel arches kind of look a little bit funny. Very high, big gap in the middle. So I can always lower the car in the future, but right now, to be honest, I quite like the rake of the car. It looks kind of weird, different, so I'm going to live with it for a bit, but we'll see what we can do. I might get some corner weights on the car and lower the front down, or instead of getting coilovers, because coilovers are expensive. But anyway, that's in the future. Right now, at least I've got tyres and wheels that will fit on the car. So the wheels and tyres that I got actually were about $150 each, which was a lot less. Well, I say a lot less. It was less than the BF Goodrich's, and I know these tyres should be good. So pretty excited about that. I got them mounted and balanced with the shop I use down the road. They're pretty cheap. Pretty happy about that. So that's the tyres and wheels ready to go. Hopefully the 15-inch wheels will fit over some brakes and things. Right now I'm planning on just rebuilding the brakes I have, but the rears are drum brakes and I'm not super happy about that, so I'm thinking about getting some disc brake conversion. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully they'll fit under the 15-inch wheels, because I really like these NASCAR wheels. I think they look sick. So the kids still say sick. So when I was fitting the tyres on the back just to test the fitment, I did notice a very large rust spot in the rear arch, the rear quarter panel. A little bit worrying. It's quite a big hole. It looks like it's actually come from the inside, so it looks like water kind of got around the rear window seal and leaked into the low part of the trunk, and it's just rusted it out. So I'll do a patch panel, hopefully do some welding, be pretty cool. It's just a race car, I'm not going for any Concours d'Elegance awards or anything, so welding a patch panel in there is no big deal. I also, when I was down there, I noticed some rust spots on the door. Okay, whatever. I mean, I could replace the doors. I could just weld it in, weld some things in, sand it down. Again, no big deal. So just something to bear in mind. So the last thing I want to mention on this episode is about the radiator. So in the earlier episodes, I noticed that I found a receipt for stop. I found a receipt for stop leak, which is to stop leaks in the radiator. So I know I needed to either get a new radiator or whatever. So I went on Facebook and found a guy that was selling an F-body radiator. Now, an F-body is what GM refers to for the Firebird and Camaro. Back in the 60s it was called the F-body, and all the way up into the 2000s it was called an F-body. I don't think the new Camaro is an F-body. I have no idea. Don't really care. So I was pretty excited that it was for an F-body. Now, it probably actually was from a later model, so like a 90s to 2000s fourth generation. Mine's a third generation F-body, so I think it's probably from a fourth generation F-body. And it comes with the dual electric fans, which I'm pretty excited about, and I'll do a future episode where I talk about my plans for that. The only problem is it looks a little thin, but it's quite big, so we'll see how well it does. But the thing I noticed was that it was probably from a stick shift car. In fact, it definitely was from a stick shift car, because the radiator that I currently have has a provision for the bottom half of it actually is used to cool the transmission fluid in the automatic transmission. So without having that provision, I'm going to have to figure out a way of cooling the transmission, and that's okay, because if I'm going to be racing it, I probably want a more efficient cooler anyway. So I'll get onto that in a future episode. But it also means that if I do want to change the transmission out, I don't have to drain the radiator and unplug it and all that kind of stuff. So now I'll have a radiator that's just cooling the engine, and I'll have a separate radiator for the transmission. So it kind of keeps the system separate. So pretty excited about that. Hopefully it fits. I might have to make some brackets, but there we go.
Where are we with the spend? Well, rear tyres cost $335, front tyres were $305, wheels were $280, radiator was $100, and miscellaneous was $50. So this episode has cost me just over $1,000, and we're almost at $3,000 for the spend so far. The wheels I actually bought on Speedway Motors, and I think it was the fronts or the rears were like factory return, so they had some scratches on it. Doesn't bother me, I'm probably going to get them scratched up anyway. And the front and rear tyres both came from eBay. The radiator was from Facebook.
And thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe and comment about any questions you have, and I'll answer them in future episodes. But thanks for watching, and cheerio.